The first time I heard the words, I thought I had misheard. Mrs. Carter, the bride-to-be smiled sweetly, her manicured fingers tapping against the folder of contracts. You're not invited to the wedding, but you can keep the deposit. Consider it compensation. Compensation. For being excluded from my only son's wedding. I sat frozen in the cafe chair. The steam rising from my untouched tea curling upward like the last fragile threads of dignity I still held on to. My son, Daniel, sat beside her. My son, who once clung to my hand when nightmares woke him at night. He didn't look at me now. His gaze was locked on the table, shame painted across his face. I swallowed hard. Excuse me. The bride, Amelia, leaned closer. You've been difficult. Too involved. Daniel and I decided it's best if you don't attend. But don't worry, your money isn't wasted. That $60,000 deposit you covered? We'll let you keep it. Her tone was honey over glass. Sweet but cutting deep. I turned to Daniel, searching his face for some kind of defense. Some sign that this wasn't real. That my son hadn't just let his fiancée erase me from one of the most sacred days of his life. But his jaw clenched and he whispered, Mom, let's not make a scene. The ground tilted beneath me. A memory flashed, me working 2 jobs after my husband passed, scraping together every cent so Daniel could go to college debt-free. Me skipping vacations, tightening the belt so he could chase his dreams. And now, after all of that, I was being told I wasn't worthy of a seat at his wedding table. I steadied my voice. So you'll take the deposit, my money, my effort, and I'm supposed to accept being erased? Amelia's smile sharpened. It's not personal. We just don't think you'll fit the image we're going for. Fit the image. I bit down the sting in my throat. This wasn't just rejection. It was humiliation dressed as generosity. Thank you for the offer, I said, standing slowly, my chair scraping the floor. But you may find that what you've built on arrogance has a way of collapsing. Amelia blinked, clearly not expecting me to respond with calm instead of tears. Daniel shifted uneasily, but he still said nothing. I walked out of that cafe with my heart torn in two, betrayed by my son, insulted by the woman he loved. But anger has a way of clarifying things. And as I drove home, the words circled in my mind. Keep the deposit. They thought the money was enough to buy my silence, my acceptance. What they didn't realize was that the deposit wasn't the only thing I'd secured. Because long before Amelia ever dreamed of becoming Mrs. Carter, I had made sure every contract for that wedding was signed in my name. And in that moment, I knew exactly how I would respond. I didn't cry that night. I thought I would. I thought I'd collapse into bed, clutching the pillow like a lifeline, wondering where I had failed as a mother. But instead, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the neatly stacked contracts I'd signed months earlier. Venue, catering, flowers, entertainment, even the luxury cars for the bridal party's arrival. Every single one bore my name. And suddenly, Amelia's smug little smile replayed in my mind. You can keep the deposit. I laughed. For the first time since the cafe, I laughed out loud. They had no idea. The next few weeks, I played my part carefully. Whenever Daniel called, rarely and always with Amelia listening, I kept my tone soft, polite, supportive. Of course, darling. Whatever makes you happy. If Amelia suspected anything, she didn't show it. She believed she'd won. That I was licking my wounds in silence. But beneath that surface calm, I was rewriting the script. 3 weeks before the wedding, I visited the venue manager. Circumstances have changed, I told her, sliding the contract across the desk. The couple has decided they don't want me involved. And since the agreement is in my name, I'd like to make a few adjustments. The manager frowned. Adjustments? Yes, I said smoothly. I'll still be hosting an event that day. Just not the one they're expecting. And so the quiet shift began. The band? Released. The flower arrangements? Redirected. The luxury cars? Cancelled, except for one, which I kept for myself. Instead, I arranged a different gathering. Smaller, intimate, filled with people who had walked beside me through every storm. My sister, my oldest friends, even my late husband's brother who hadn't been invited to Daniel's wedding at all. It wasn't about revenge, not yet. It was about reclaiming my dignity. The week of the wedding, Amelia called me for the first time directly. Her voice dripped with false sweetness. "Mrs. Carter, I just wanted to check. Did you transfer the remaining balance for the caterer? They've been calling Daniel about it." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "Amelia, I'm sure you'll figure something out. After all, you're the bride." Her tone sharpened. "Excuse me?" We agreed. "No," I interrupted, calm but firm. "You informed me that I wasn't invited. That meant I wasn't obligated. The contracts, however, tell a different story. And they belong to me." The silence on the other end was delicious. Then came the fury. "You can't do this. Do you have any idea how humiliating this will be for us? For Daniel?" "For Daniel, yes," I said softly. "And maybe now he'll understand what it feels like to be humiliated by the people you trusted most." She sputtered threats, accusations, venom. I ended the call. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and flawless. I put on a dress I hadn't worn in years, navy blue silk, simple but elegant. In the mirror, I saw not a cast-aside mother but a woman who had rebuilt her life from ashes before, and could do it again. Then, with my sister at my side, I went to my event. As for Daniel and Amelia, word reached me quickly. Guests arrived at the grand hall expecting opulence, only to find chaos. No band, no flowers, no cars. The caterer, unpaid, had packed up and left. Amelia's perfect image shattered before it ever began. I wasn't there to see it firsthand. I didn't need to, because while they scrambled, I was raising a glass with people who truly valued me. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. But peace has a way of stirring guilt. And that guilt toward my son, not his fiancée, lingered. Because as angry as I was, part of me still loved him. Still wanted him to see through the illusion. And what happened next proved that maybe, just maybe, he finally did. 2 days after the wedding, my phone rang. Daniel's name flashed across the screen. For a long moment, I just stared at it. I could have ignored the call. Part of me wanted to. Let him stew in the chaos he and Amelia had chosen over me. But motherhood is a stubborn, relentless thing. No matter how old your children get, no matter how deeply they wound you, there's always that flicker of hope that they'll come back to themselves. I answered, "Mom." His voice was raw, hoarse, as if he hadn't slept. I need to talk to you." I didn't respond right away. Finally, I said, "Then talk." There was a silence, broken only by his breathing. Then the words tumbled out like a confession. Everything fell apart. The guests were furious. Amelia blamed me for not getting the money from you. She said it was my job to control you. And when I told her she was being unfair, his voice cracked. She left. She actually left, Mom. She packed her things and disappeared the next morning. I closed my eyes. A part of me mourned, not for Amelia, but for the illusion my son had been living in. "Daniel," I said softly, "she didn't love you. She loved what she thought you could give her. The wedding, the status, the show. And when that disappeared, so did she." He didn't argue. He didn't defend her. He just whispered, "I know." That afternoon, Daniel came to my house. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a week. His suit was rumpled, his eyes red-rimmed. When he stepped inside, I braced myself for accusations, anger, maybe even blame. Instead, he sank into a chair at the kitchen table and buried his face in his hands. "I don't know what I was thinking," he muttered. "I let her turn me against you. Against the only person who's ever truly been in my corner." I sat down across from him. "You wanted to believe in love. There's no shame in that. But love doesn't demand you cut out your family. Love doesn't use you as leverage." He nodded, tears dripping between his fingers. "I thought I was protecting her. But she was the one who needed protecting. From herself, from her greed." For the first time in months, I reached across the table and took his hand. "No, Daniel. She wasn't your responsibility. But you are mine. And I will always protect you. Even if it means protecting you from your own choices." His grip tightened around mine, wordless but heavy with understanding. In the weeks that followed, Daniel slowly pieced his life back together. Amelia never resurfaced, at least not in his world. Rumors trickled in from mutual acquaintances. She was chasing another wealthy prospect, whispering stories about how she had been the victim of a cruel, controlling fiancé and his meddling mother. Let her spin her lies. The truth had already come to light where it mattered most. And then one evening as we were cleaning up after dinner, Daniel looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "Mom," he murmured, "I used to think strength meant sacrificing everything for someone else. Now I realize strength is knowing when to stop sacrificing yourself." The words were simple, but the weight of them nearly undid me. My son had finally learned the lesson I'd been forced to carry for decades. Months later, people still whispered about the wedding disaster of the year. About the bride who vanished, the family feud, the mother who supposedly sabotaged the whole affair. I didn't bother correcting them. Let them gossip. Because I knew the truth. And Daniel knew the truth. We had walked through fire and betrayal, and come out standing side by side again. Stronger. Wiser. Bound not by money or image, but by something far rarer, respect. So yes, Amelia thought she had cut me out. She thought she had humiliated me, used me, discarded me. But in the end, she only revealed her own emptiness. And in losing her, my son found his way back to himself, and to me. And that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all.